Have you ever taken a bite of something and felt like something inside you shifted, as if your energy was suddenly drained, your mind clouded, or your spirit unsettled? What if I told you that not every piece of food placed in front of you is meant to nourish you? What if I told you that sometimes food is the weapon? This is where it gets uncomfortable, because witches have always understood one thing very well: the power of what you put into your body. They don't just curse from afar, they don't just chant in the shadows, they infiltrate the most innocent, everyday act we all engage in, eating. And when you consume what is prepared with dark intentions, you're not just swallowing food, you're swallowing energy, you're swallowing a spell. Think about it. Food carries energy. When someone prepares it, they are transferring their state of being, their emotions, and yes, even their intentions into it. A meal made with love has a different effect on your body and spirit than something made with bitterness, envy, or hatred. Now imagine what happens when someone deliberately stirs curses into your meal, when they whisper incantations over ingredients, or when they anoint food with substances designed to weaken you spiritually. You eat it unsuspectingly, and suddenly you feel heavy, you feel drained, you feel confused. That's not just bad digestion, that's spiritual sabotage, and this is how witches operate. They don't always confront you directly. They know you would resist. Instead, they come at you subtly, slipping darkness into the most ordinary part of life. They put it in the bread you're handed, the drink you're offered, the delicacies you're flattered into tasting. You think you're sharing a meal, when in reality, you're partaking in a ritual designed to weaken your defenses. And the moment you eat what they've touched with their darkness, you've given them access. Your spirit begins to wrestle with forces you didn't even know you invited in. You must understand, witches know the power of gateways, and your mouth is one of the most powerful. Every bite, every sip is an entry point. If they can't break into your life with force, they'll sneak in through flavor. And here's the terrifying part: many people don't even realize they've been bewitched, because it doesn't always look dramatic. It might start as fatigue, it might look like constant stress, it might show up as mental fog, unexplained sickness, or even recurring nightmares. You dismiss it as life, when in reality, it was the food that opened the door. Food is never just food. It carries energy, it carries intention, it carries the very spirit of the one who prepared it. You know this already, even if you haven't put it into words. Think about the difference between eating a meal made by someone who loves you, someone who pours care into every detail, compared to something thrown together by someone who resents you or is angry with you. One leaves you feeling comforted, full, and strong. The other leaves you uneasy, unsettled, sometimes even sick. That's not coincidence, that's energy. Every action, every thought, every emotion leaves an imprint. And when someone prepares food, they're not just working with ingredients. They're transferring themselves into it. Now imagine what happens when that energy is dark. When someone cooks with envy in their heart, when they stir bitterness into the pot, when they whisper words of malice over the food they're making. You don't just consume calories, you consume the energy, the intent, the darkness attached to it. And that is why food becomes one of the most dangerous tools in the hands of witches. Because they understand this truth better than most people do. They know that if they can influence what you put into your body, they can influence your mind, your spirit, your very life. You see, witches don't always work in the obvious. They use the everyday as their weapon, and food, the thing we all need, the thing we all trust, becomes their disguise. They can hand you a plate and smile, but behind that smile is energy meant to weaken you. And because most people think of food as harmless, they open themselves up without hesitation. That's the trap, because once you've consumed it, you've already invited their energy into your body, and undoing that is not as easy as refusing it in the first place. Witches use food as a weapon because it is the easiest way to disarm you. They know most people will never suspect a curse could be hidden in something so ordinary, so simple, so comforting. That's the brilliance of it. You expect danger to look like danger. You expect it to roar, to come at you with force. But real danger often looks harmless. It looks like an offering of kindness, a shared meal, a sweet treat given with a smile. That's the perfect camouflage, because the moment you accept it without question, you've lowered your guard. And when your guard is down, that's when the attack slips in. You have to understand that food prepared with dark intention is more than just poisoned physically. It's poisoned spiritually. Some witches don't need to add anything strange to your food. They don't need powders or potions you can taste. All they need are words, rituals, and focused energy. They can stir their curses into the very essence of what you're about to eat. And when you consume it, you're not just feeding your body. You're feeding your soul poison disguised as nourishment. That's how witchcraft works. It's not about what you see, it's about what you can't see. The reason this is so dangerous is because eating is an act of trust. When you take food from someone, you are in a way saying, I trust what you've placed in my hands. And when that trust is misplaced, it becomes your downfall. Witches exploit that. They exploit your innocence, your politeness, your willingness to accept what's offered without hesitation. They know if they cursed your home, you'd fight back. If they cursed you in public, you'd resist. But if they cursed your food, you'd welcome it into your body yourself. And that's the ultimate trap. Preparation is never just about chopping vegetables or seasoning meat. It's a spiritual act, whether you realize it or not. Every gesture, every word, every thought poured into the process becomes part of the food itself. When someone cooks with joy, with peace, with love, that energy infuses the meal and strengthens the one who eats it. But when someone prepares food with jealousy burning inside them, with hatred, with dark whispers spoken under their breath, that poison seeps into what you're about to consume. You won't see it, you won't taste it, but you will feel it. This is where witches are calculated. They understand that cooking is more than physical, it's spiritual alchemy. The kitchen becomes their altar, the pot their cauldron, the spoon their wand. With every stir, they can lace words of destruction into what looks like an innocent meal. With every sprinkle of seasoning, they can plant curses designed to cling to you. They don't need to fight you face to face when they can reach into your life through something as small and overlooked as preparation. And because most people never question it, they consume it without hesitation, never realizing the true battle is already inside them. Think about how vulnerable that makes you. You sit at the table, smiling, laughing, eating, while completely unaware that the very act of chewing and swallowing is giving someone access to your body, your mind, your spirit. That is why preparation is so powerful, because it decides whether the food you eat becomes your strength or your downfall. And if a witch is the one preparing it, you can be sure it's not meant to build you up, but to tear you down piece by piece. Your mouth is one of the greatest gateways you possess, and most people never even realize it. It is the doorway through which life sustains you, but it is also the doorway through which destruction can slip in unnoticed. Every bite you take, every sip you drink, is more than just physical consumption. It is an opening, an invitation, a transaction of energy. Witches know this better than anyone. They know that if they can't get into your home, if they can't break through your mind, if they can't pierce your spirit directly, they can still reach you through the one place you will never close. Off your own mouth. Think about it. What is the one act every human being does every single day, multiple times, without hesitation? We eat, we drink, and because it's so ordinary, so common, we rarely stop to consider the weight of it. We don't question what's behind it. We don't think about the energy within it. We simply open our mouths and let it in. That is why it's such a powerful gateway. Because the moment you consume, you are giving permission. You are saying, I allow this inside of me. You are literally taking something from outside and merging it with your inner being. And once it's inside, you can't just spit it out and erase the effect. It becomes part of you, flowing into your bloodstream, into your energy, into your spirit. That's why witches weaponize food, because it is the one doorway you willingly open every single day. Witches understand that if they can lace darkness into food or drink, they can bypass all your defenses. You may protect your home with prayers. You may guard your mind with discipline. You may strengthen your spirit with faith. But if you sit down and eat something cursed, you've just undone it all. You've invited the enemy into your own temple, and you did it with your own hands. That's how subtle, that's how dangerous this gateway really is. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. What enters through your mouth doesn't only affect your body, it affects your mind, your emotions, your spiritual clarity. Why do you think so many people eat something and suddenly feel drained, foggy, restless, or heavy? It's not always bad food. It's not always poor health choices. It's sometimes because the energy behind what they consumed was toxic. You don't just digest nutrients, you digest intention. You don't just swallow flavor, you swallow energy. That's why a meal made with love can heal you, and a meal cursed with malice can break you. This is the weapon witches wield. They can't always strike you with visible blows, but they don't need to. All they have to do is exploit the one gateway you refuse to close. And because food is associated with fellowship, with comfort, with family, with generosity, it becomes the perfect disguise. You think you're accepting kindness when really you're ingesting a curse. You think you're sharing a meal when really you're entering into a ritual you never agreed to. And here's the part that should shake you. Once it passes through that gateway, once it enters your body, you carry it. You carry the spell, the intention, the energy. You can pray afterward, you can fight to shake it off, but it's far more difficult to reverse once you've already consumed it. That's why awareness is everything. That's why discernment is survival. Because the mouth, this gateway you use every single day, has the power to strengthen your spirit or to silently betray you. And if you don't wake up to this truth, if you don't guard this doorway with everything you have, you will never even notice when the darkness enters in. The most unsettling part about witchcraft through food is that it doesn't always strike like lightning. It doesn't always come with a dramatic sign that screams danger. More often, it slips in quietly, almost invisibly, and it begins with subtlety. That's why so many people never connect what they're experiencing to what they've eaten. They dismiss the signs, they brush them off as coincidence, when in reality, they've just swallowed a spiritual attack. You start to feel fatigue that makes no sense. You're sleeping, you're resting, but your body feels like it's carrying bricks. That's not normal exhaustion, that's energy being drained from you. Then comes the confusion. Your thoughts become cloudy, your focus disappears, your decision-making becomes shaky. You think it's just stress, but really it's spiritual interference fogging up your mind. Sometimes it shows up as recurring nightmares, shadows invading your sleep, dreams that leave you shaken and restless. Other times it manifests as sickness symptoms with no explanation. Pain doctors can't quite diagnose, cycles of weakness that medicine doesn't seem to break. That's how witches work. They don't want you to recognize the attack. They want you to explain it away, to normalize it, to live with it. Because the longer you ignore it, the deeper it takes root. Darkness doesn't need to roar to destroy you. It just needs to creep in and stay undetected. And when it comes through food, it's nearly perfect, because who thinks to blame their meal? Who stops to question what was on their plate when their life begins to unravel in slow motion? Almost no one. That's the strategy, to hide destruction in plain sight. And here's the reality: the subtle effects are far more dangerous than the obvious ones. If someone cursed you openly, you'd resist. If you saw evil coming, you'd prepare for battle. But when it creeps in through something as ordinary as dinner, you don't even know a war has begun. That's why witches favor this method. It's slow poison, not immediate death. It's gradual erosion, not sudden collapse. And by the time you recognize what's happening, you've already been weakened, already compromised, already carrying energy that was never meant to be inside you. This is why you can't afford to ignore the little signs: the sudden heaviness after eating, the unexplainable fog in your mind, the restless nights that keep repeating. These aren't always just life. They can be evidence that something dark has entered through the most trusted act of all, the food you allowed past your guard. And when you dismiss those subtle signals, you're giving witchcraft exactly what it wants: silence, compliance, and unawareness. Not every meal is safe, and that's a hard truth most people don't want to accept. We're conditioned to believe that food is always a gift, that sharing a meal is always an act of kindness, that when someone offers you something to eat or drink, you should accept it with gratitude. But the reality is, not every hand that feeds you does it with love. Not every plate placed in front of you is meant to nourish you. Some are traps carefully disguised as generosity, and if you don't discern, you will walk right into them smiling. This is where people get deceived the most, because food carries culture, tradition, hospitality. It's the universal symbol of care. That's why it's the perfect cover for darkness. You assume safety because it comes wrapped in something familiar. You think, why would someone go through the trouble of preparing this if they didn't mean well? But witches don't think the way you do. Their goal isn't to serve you, it's to weaken you, and they know the quickest way to bypass your suspicion is to hide their intent in something you've been taught never to question: a meal. How many people have sat at a table, laughed, eaten, and never realized they were partaking in something laced with energy meant to harm them? How many lives have been quietly sabotaged through a simple drink, a sweet treat, a dish passed across the table with a smile? It happens more than most want to admit, because we live in a world where we've forgotten that not every invitation is innocent. Some doors are traps, some gifts are poisoned, some meals are designed not to fill you but to empty you. And this is where you have to rise above politeness. You cannot afford to eat from every hand simply because you don't want to offend someone. Too many people sacrifice their own well-being on the altar of courtesy. They ignore the unease in their gut, the small voice warning them, because they don't want to appear rude. But let me tell you, protecting your spirit is more important than protecting someone else's feelings. You have to know when to refuse, when to push the plate away, when to say no without apology, because your survival depends on it. Not every meal is safe, and the sooner you accept that, the stronger you become. Because once you understand that food can be weaponized, you will never again let your guard down simply because something looks delicious or is offered with a smile. You will pause, you will discern, and you will choose carefully. And that choice could be the very thing that saves your life. You must always discern the source, because who prepares your food matters just as much as what is in it. Energy doesn't lie, and intention cannot be hidden. The hands that touch your meal, the spirit that stirs the pot, the thoughts present during its preparation, those are the unseen ingredients you're consuming. You can't afford to ignore that. If a person's heart is heavy with envy, if their mind is brewing resentment, if their spirit is entangled with darkness, then every ounce of that transfers into the food they make. And when you eat it, you don't just consume the meal, you consume them. This is why you need to ask yourself serious questions before you accept food. Who made this? What spirit were they carrying when they made it? What intentions lie behind their so-called kindness? Because the truth is, not everyone who smiles at you means you well. Some people feed you while secretly feeding off you. They use the meal as the gateway to tie you to their energy, to tether you to their will, to weaken your defenses without you realizing it. It's not paranoia, it's awareness. You've already felt this before. You've eaten something and afterward felt unsettled, drained, or strangely emotional. That wasn't just food, it was transfer. It was the unseen weight of the person who made it clinging to you. And if that person's motives are dark, the transfer becomes even more dangerous. Witches thrive in this space because they know you're more likely to ask, "What's in the food?" Then, who made the food, and with what spirit? And the second question is always the one that matters more. Discernment isn't about suspicion of everyone. It's about wisdom. It's about recognizing that your spirit is valuable, your energy is precious, and you cannot afford to let anyone and everyone have access to it. You wouldn't let just anyone into your home. You wouldn't hand your keys to a stranger. So why would you allow just anyone to prepare something that enters the most sacred place of all? Your body, your temple, your spirit. Witches know that most people don't think this way, and that ignorance becomes their open door. You must be the one who chooses differently. You must guard not just what you eat, but where it came from and who handled it. Because food is never just food, it's a vessel. And if you don't discern the source, you could be dining with destruction and calling it dinner. Spiritual sabotage rarely comes looking like sabotage. That's why it works so well. It dresses itself up as kindness, it disguises itself as generosity, it wears the mask of friendship or hospitality. Someone offers you food, and you think it's love, you think it's care, you think it's connection, but what if that plate isn't an act of service, but a carefully crafted setup? What if behind that sweet gesture is a strategy designed to weaken you, to bind you, to strip you of your strength without you even knowing it? That's how witchcraft hides under the cover of goodness. And isn't that the most dangerous kind of trap? The ones you walk into willingly, the ones you welcome with open hands, the ones you never think to resist because they don't look threatening. That's exactly why witches use food, because they know the moment they hand it to you, your guard drops. You don't analyze, you don't question, you don't pray, you just accept. And in that acceptance, you unknowingly enter into an agreement, a silent exchange, where what looks like generosity is actually infiltration. How many times have people overlooked their instincts because they didn't want to seem ungrateful? How many times have they silenced that inner warning because they were too focused on politeness? This is where people get trapped not by force, but by manipulation, which is count on your willingness to accept what feels wrong just so you don't offend someone. They count on you dismissing that sudden heaviness in your chest, that hesitation in your gut, because you don't want to make a scene. And in that moment, you choose courtesy over protection. You trade your safety for someone else's comfort. And by the time you realize what's been done, the damage is already inside of you. That's why you have to be bold enough to see through the disguise. To recognize that not all kindness is pure, not all giving is genuine, not all meals are made to bless you. Some are made to bind you. Some are served with the sole purpose of dulling your edge, confusing your mind, and draining your spirit. And if you're not willing to acknowledge that, you'll keep mistaking sabotage for generosity. You'll keep accepting poison with a smile. And you'll wonder why your strength disappears little by little, even as you keep saying yes to what looks like love, but feels like loss. Protection begins with awareness. You can't guard yourself against what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't fight an enemy you keep pretending doesn't exist. Witches exploit ignorance. They thrive on people who live carelessly, who eat without thought, who accept without question. But the moment you wake up, the moment you begin to see food not just as physical but as spiritual, everything changes. You stop living as prey, and you start living as a guardian of your own spirit. That's why you must bless what you eat. Every meal, every drink, not out of routine, but out of conviction. Because when you speak over your food, when you claim it, when you purify it with words of power, you break whatever intention might have been attached to it. You're saying, this enters me only as nourishment, only as strength, only as life. You're canceling anything that was spoken against you. You're burning away what was designed to harm you. That's not superstition, that's protection, and sometimes the strongest protection is simply saying no. Listening when your intuition warns you, when your spirit whispers that something is off. Too many people ignore that inner voice because they don't want to offend someone. But protecting yourself will always matter more than pleasing others. If your gut says don't eat it, don't. If you feel heaviness the moment food is offered, decline it without apology. That is your spirit protecting you. That's your awareness shielding you from sabotage. Because when you walk in awareness, you stop becoming an easy target. You stop handing witches the doorway they're so desperate to use. You start living with your guard up, not in fear, but in strength. And that strength is what blocks the curse before it can even reach you. It's what keeps you untouchable, unshaken, no matter who tries to slip darkness onto your plate. Your power is in choice, and that's something no witch, no curse, no dark intention can ever take away from you. Every time food is placed in front of you, every time a drink is offered, every time someone extends a hand with something meant to enter your body, you hold the power to decide. That decision is your shield. That decision is your weapon. And the danger comes when you forget that you have it, when you believe you're obligated to accept, obligated to consume, obligated to ignore your own discernment. But you are never obligated. You always have the choice to say yes or the strength to say no. When you choose awareness over carelessness, you block the very doorway witches are desperate to exploit. When you choose discernment over politeness, you protect yourself from sabotage disguised as generosity. When you choose to bless what you eat instead of consuming it blindly, you strip away any hidden intent before it can touch you. Every choice you make either opens the door or closes it, and that means you are not powerless. You are the one holding the keys. That's why the most dangerous lie is the one that says, it's just food, it doesn't matter. No, it matters. Because food is the most underestimated weapon, and your mouth is the most unguarded gate. But when you understand your power of choice, you no longer eat carelessly, you no longer drink thoughtlessly, you no longer live unaware. You become intentional, you become guarded, and with that choice, you become untouchable. Because at the end of the day, witches can whisper, they can stir, they can disguise their intent all they want, but none of it has power if you refuse to accept it. None of it can enter if you don't allow it. And that is where your strength lies, in the decision to guard your spirit fiercely, to honor your intuition, and to never, ever surrender your mouth, your gateway, your life to hands that don't mean you well, Your power is in choice, and that choice is what keeps you free. So understand this. Your spirit, your mind, your energy, your very life are far too valuable to be placed carelessly in the hands of anyone who offers you a plate. Witches may use food as their weapon, but their power only works if you surrender your guard. The truth is, you are not helpless. You are not defenseless. You are the one who decides what enters your body, what crosses your threshold, what becomes part of you. And when you choose awareness, when you choose discernment, when you choose to protect what is sacred inside of you, no darkness can overpower you. You must see beyond the surface, trust your intuition, and never be afraid to refuse what does not feel right, because your protection begins the moment you decide you will no longer eat blindly, you will no longer accept carelessly, and you will no longer confuse sabotage with kindness. Guard your mouth, guard your spirit, and you will remain untouchable. The food of witches may be poisoned, but the strength of your choice is greater. And when you live with that truth, nothing served against you can ever take you down.